Today we are going to talk about sump pumps because I know you all lay awake at night and think about your sump pump. We have Josh here with St. Matthew's Plumbing, and he is going to go through all the different variations of sump pumps that we have here.
So a sump pump is a device that's used to pump all the groundwater that's located under your slab. It's also kind of a safety net for if your basement ever floods. It's gonna discharge it outside your house so that way it's not hanging out inside the basement. You'll normally have a floor drain in your basement running from there into your sump pump so that if anything floods, it'll go into the floor drain and pump up to the pump and then out to the outside environment. Sometimes folks with crawl spaces, they have a lot of water that can come into the crawl space and things like that, so you can have a sump pump installed in a crawl space. And then another application would be for stairwells. If you have a stairwell without a floor drain, you can get a sump pump installed there and then it'll pump it out. Most of the time sump pumps are going to be located in the utility room. So like any kind of unfinished area. Most of the time they're on a exterior wall, and you're gonna be looking for a pipe that's gonna, be a PVC white pipe that's gonna be coming up out of a lid in the slab, in the concrete slab of your house. And the pipe should be coming up and running outside the house. If you follow the pipe, you'll see that it's discharging outside the house.
And since we're discharging out the house, go back to our other drainage video and we're gonna tell you that it needs to be at least 8 feet is what I recommend. This is just like your gutters and your downspouts. You do not want it discharging near your house.
And one thing to note about burying sump pump discharges, it's always important whenever you bury a sump pump discharge is whenever your output comes out of the house and drops down below the ground, you need to have what's called an air gap. If it ever backs up with an air gap, you'll notice it's backing up, so you'll one, notice that there's an issue, and two, the water won't be backing up into your house. You normally won't hear the sound of the pump actually discharging. What you do hear is you can hear the water rushing through the system sometimes, but the biggest noise that you'll hear is normally a check valve. This is basically to keep water from backing up into your house and into your sump pump to flood your basement. So basically what happens is your water comes through and opens up the check, and then after your discharge, sump pump's done discharging, it'll close back down to keep water from flowing in. So that thump sound that you're hearing is sometimes what you'll hear whenever a sump pump discharges and stops. So these are the two sump pump brands that I've used and I've recommended. This is a Liberty 257 and this is a Zoller M53. They work very similarly. You have a float switch here that once the water level rises enough, you can hear a click and that's going to engage the discharge where it draws the water up through here and then discharges out here. So you'll have what's called a male adapter that's a PVC fitting that screws into here with the discharge coming up out of there. They both work great, but the only reason I like Zoller a little bit better is because of the design of the float switch. So I have had before where this float switch has gotten stuck a little bit easier, and that causes the pump to continually run, which can damage your pump. With the design of this one, since it's round, if something gets caught on it, it makes it a little bit easier for it to slip back down into position. I definitely recommend you test your sump pumps. The worst thing that could happen is your sump pump fail and you have a flood. Once every 3 months or maybe at least once a quarter, but if you want to be very proactive, you can check it once a month. And how you check a pump is, one, if you ever hear it discharging, you can go outside and make sure you see water flowing from the discharge. The other way is to manually lift the float and to make sure it engages. You'll hear it run, you'll see the water discharge.
It might make you jump
yeah.
if you're not ready for it.
So, and this brings me to another kind of reason why I like the Zoller a little bit more is because a cool little trick you can do with these to make it easier to test so you don't have to keep opening your crock and sticking your hand down into the groundwater and all that kind of stuff. You can actually tie a string to this float switch here, and then from above the crock you can just pull the string and it'll engage the float. So this one you can't really tie anything to it to engage as easily as you can the Zoller.
How about we talk about these other backup pumps here?
Sure, so we've got two types of backup sump pumps here that don't require electricity in case your electricity runs out. These pumps, as you can see, have a 110 cord here where they do need to be plugged into electric with electric running. These ones, however, do not run off electric, which makes them good for backup. So we've got the Sump Jet backup here, which runs off water, which is the one that I would recommend. And then we have a battery backup, which aren't used as often any longer. I don't really recommend this kind. This one's gonna run off of a like a boat battery, like a DC battery. So that's why I kind of don't recommend this one as much. One, the pump's not very strong. It's kind of like a fish tank pump. And two, if your batteries ever goes bad, which they do just over time, it's not gonna function. Now this kind I do recommend. This one's quite a bit more expensive normally. Works kind of similarly. You got your float here. This attaches to your discharge pipe, but this one actually runs off of water.
So now neither one of these battery backups are going to be sufficient to run long term. Neither one of them are going to ever produce as much lift and pump capacity as either one of those. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, this one is a little bit stronger than the battery, the water jet one. These are for emergencies. Most of your pumps, you can either just buy them straight up or you can buy them with a water alarm that you're going to set outside of the sump crock. And anytime the water level comes up out of the sump crock, it's going to run over to your alarm and it's going to sound a tone alerting you that your sump pump is overflowing.
And then what are we talking about here?
So in your house, you know how to find a sump pump, which is going to be that one pipe with a discharge. This is kind of the difference between them. You got a sump pump that's going to discharge in 1.5 inch PVC pipe, but you may see another crock that's going to have 2 pipes coming out of it that are going to be larger pipes. It's going to be a 2-inch PVC pipe, and that's going to be an ejector pump, which is a different kind of application. It's going to do a different thing, and we can describe that. Now with your sump pump, you may see 2 pipes coming out of that. One's going to be your discharge, the other's going to be a vent, but that's not as common. You will always see it on an ejector. It's going to be 2-inch pipes coming out of the crock. This one is much bigger, yeah. And this one is designed as a way to get basement bathrooms up out of your systems. If your basement is lower than your sewer tap, which is going to be outside, then you're going to need a pump to pump all the wastewater out of your basement and into your regular drain, waste, and vent plumbing system. So it's a bigger pump because it's going to have to do a lot more work. And the biggest, one of the biggest differences other than being bigger is, I don't know if you can see up in here, but this has blades that's going to help cut up all of the waste and send it along its way. So that's the difference between these. This is going to be in what's called a sealed system. This one is going to be in a crock that has either a rubber gasket or is coated in silicone to keep sewer gas smells from coming up out of it. And that's kind of one of the other big differences between that and a sump pump, because the sump pump is just groundwater and it's not going to be airtight like a ejector pump will. So Zoller has said that, now, you know, we can't say exactly, but the average is 7 to 10 years. Now I have seen some last 20, 25 years or so. However, that is not always
borrowed
the case.
Time.
Yes, that's not always the case. So as long as you're regularly checking them, you can use them until they go out. You just want to make sure you're proactive about replacing them if they do go out. Otherwise, you have the risk of flooding your basement.
The thing to keep in mind, my recommendation, in most cases, you're going to want to get a plumber in here to do this. Can you do it yourself? Absolutely. But there's just little tips and tricks that a plumber is going to know because he's installed 100 of them this year and you're installing 1 in your lifetime. Something as serious as a sump pump, get a plumber in there, get a licensed plumber in there and do it right. If you have a sump pump in your basement, you want to check your insurance policy to make sure that you have an insurance rider for whatever they may call it. I'm not in the insurance business. I've bent nails for a living, in case we didn't tell you that before. But you want to make sure that you have some sort of rider, whatever it is they call, for a sump pump. Because just because you have a homeowner's policy doesn't mean that you have coverage for sump pump failure. And I would recommend you check. And I would recommend, if you have a sump pump, you need to have that endorsement on your policy. The other thing is if you have a finished basement, you need to really think about what it would cost to redo, rebuild, whatever that is in your basement, and make sure that your policy limits are going to cover that.
When you set up your sump pump coverage, generally it's in a policy limit. Everything from the mitigation, dry out, clean up process to putting it all back together, maybe any of your belongings that were damaged, all of that stuff comes out of that cap. So if you only have, we see frequently a $5,000 cap. If you only have a $5,000 cap, that might get you cleaned and dried. Might. That's not even talking about the plumber coming out and doing a repair on the pump itself. That'll be In addition, all that stuff, make sure that you think through those pieces and that you have enough coverage. That you have coverage and that you have enough coverage. If you feel we've earned it, we would love to have you subscribe to the channel, and we'd love to hear from you as well. So leave a comment below, send us an email, and we'd love to hear maybe more questions that you have about sump pumps or ejector pumps even. Like, comment, subscribe. We really appreciate your help in helping us grow this and help other people in our area and in our community.